We invented everything. Yeah. Thank God I'm black. Thank God I'm black. Thank God I'm black. We invented everything. Yeah. Thank God I'm black. Thank God I'm black. Thank God.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Boot Brother Podcast. This is an unapologetically black podcast about business and life. And our guest today is Sister Victoria. What's going on, Sister Victoria? How are you?
What is going on? I am doing well. How are you guys?
We are good. We are good. We are glad to have you on. You are our first official woman. I mean, we had a woman on before, but you're like the first one, solo dolo woman. So yeah, so you making history. Yes, this is our Sister Victoria. She is a part of a group that we're all a part of, a tribe called the ABS tribe. So this is we talk to her every single day. She really holds us down. She is the best. She's the glue that hold it all together. So we wanted to have her on here. We really want to have a lot of balance on our podcast. We're really putting a lot of black women in the forefront because we all know that they hold us down. So we really want to use this platform in particular to bring our guests on and make sure that we just don't have the bros, but we also had the sisters on here as well. Sister Victoria, a lot of our guests might not know you. Can you just tell us a little bit about yourself? Just kind of get them in the know.
I think I should just create some kind of intro because people always tell me about yourself, and I don't really. But my name is Sister Victoria X. I'm a wife and mother of 4 children. I have a bachelor's of science in business management, and I help moms and wives transition from staying at home to working at home. And I just overall love to help people. My background is in administration, so I'm like the back end type of person.
And where you're from? Where was your childhood at?
Los Angeles, California. So LA, not Lancaster or
LA.
like LA.
There's a difference. That's what's up. So what was it like growing up in LA?
It was interesting. I'm one of 7, but only 5 of us lived together. We didn't really go out a lot. We didn't do a lot of sleepovers. We kind of just went to school, came back. So I joined sports. I did basketball in college. I did track. I did long distance one semester. Not even a semester. I don't even think I made it. Long distance was not for me. But and then I was one of maybe 3 girls on an all-male wrestling team. And so that was it. That was school, sports, home, school, sports, home.
Yes, ma'am. So you said an all-male wrestling team?
Yeah, I think I was one of the for the most part, I was one of the only girls that competed, but there were 2 other girls that were on the team during practice, but most of the team was all male. So I only competed against males unless the only time I competed against other women was at an all women's tournament. But other than that, it was just all men.
And was that because it was just such a new thing? It wasn't so many women back then in the sport, or what was the purpose?
I think that was, but it was primarily because my school only had the males team. Okay. And it was kind of a dare. So all of my friends, and maybe except for 2 of my friends were girls. And so they kind of dared me to do it. They were like, oh, you wouldn't last a week. Because at that time, all of the guys were joining the wrestling team, but they were quitting. And I would laugh because it's like, dude, why you start if you ain't gonna finish it? And they were like, well, you couldn't last a week. And I ended up I think I was on a wrestling team for 2 years. Or maybe even 3 years. So it was a good time.
Dang, that's awesome.
So let me find out you out here whipping men. You out here
body slamming.
That's my old self, not anymore.
That's dope. So you hear a lot of things about LA as far as growing up there and how some I'm just going off of hip hop and things like that. Was gangs and a lot of that. Was that a big part of things that maybe kept you in sports and tried to just keep you active and things like that? Trying to stay away from some of that.
Not really. My brother was into the gang thing, I would say, but that like it was around me, but it wasn't like something like, "Oh, I'm doing this to hide from the gangs." Like that wasn't my reality, but I did see it. I saw the fights. I saw the people getting, jumped after school and
Mm,
I saw all of it, but I didn't join sports to try to get away from it.
that's good. That's good. Okay, so as far as you said, you're a wife and a mother. Now I know your faith is a big part of like everything that you do. So if you guys don't know, she is part of the Nation of Islam. She's a Muslim. Where did that? Were you always a Muslim? Did you grow up that way, or is that a part of your adult life? Or can you just kind of tell us the backstory of that? I think that would be interesting for some of our viewers.
So I did not grow up Muslim. I was actually a Christian, I guess Baptist. So that was like, I mean, like most of my life was in and out of church. We switched church every 6 to a year and a half. So I've been through a lot of churches, choir, Bible study, praise dance. I was like the whole whatever. And then I didn't come into Islam until I met my husband actually. So he has always been in the nation for as long as I've known him. And he was just an example and he never forced me, he never pressured me, he never asked me if I wanted to join or if I would consider joining. He was just an example. And it was like, if this is because he's from Watts, he's from like Watts and Compton. So like I'm like, if this whatever is helping you or that is helping you steer clear of that, then I want to know what that is. And so that's what interested me into the nation. And then I just kind of like got in from there.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That's awesome. I feel like a lot of your, like, even a lot of your content kind of incorporates that. Like, how do you feel like that has inspired you or equipped you to be a better woman?
I think I'm still like working to figure that out. I just try to be the example like my husband was to me.
Hmm.
Like a lot of there was a point in time where I was kind of ashamed that like if you looked at my page and you looked at most of the other people in the nation, you couldn't easily be able to identify, oh, she's an MGT, she's in the nation. And for a long time, I felt kind of ashamed and I was kind of I don't want to say like I was just kind of embarrassed by that. But if I look at the way that I was brought into the nation, it wasn't because people had Farrakhan rallies or you know what I mean? It wasn't because someone had a shirt or people was pushing it. It was really because I saw someone as an example. And so when I think about my journey and how I am on social media, I just try to be the example and kind of spark people's interest and then from there it typically grows. So it affects me as far as me being more what is it? More conscious about my femininity, conscious about the way that I portray myself, conscious about the way that I move and the things that I say. It's not perfect, but it does make me aware to the fact that it's not just me because I could do one thing egregiously wrong and then all of a sudden those nation people. So
Hmm.
it really made me more conscious of just being more into my feminine, getting more into my femininity versus, before, like I said, I was basketball, track, wrestling. I was I would say, very tomboyish. I didn't
Really?
wear a skirt or a dress until prom in high school. So it was like really, really, so it's really just getting me back to my nature, if I could say that.
And how do you think how has that connected your nature and femininity? Like how do you put those two together? How was the nation allowed, pulled that out of you?
Primarily because of the modesty component, right? So we're
Mm,
taught that we're to be modest. And then my journey is still going because I still have some areas that I'm working on. But it's just like the constant studying and figuring out and learning and figuring out like thinking about what modesty really is. So, like not being loud, that's, kind of being modesty, keeping your clothes on, that's modesty, covering your hair, that's modesty. And just like different parts of it. So I'm still on my femininity journey, but if I can make the connection, it's really like us being under rules and laws and guidelines. And I can say that when I was in the church, I can't speak for all churches, but just my personal experience,
mhm,
you're not really held accountable. You know what I mean? In my opinion, you're not really held accountable. But within the nation, there's a structure, there's a hierarchy, so that if you step out of line, you know, somebody gonna have to come see you. And we ain't talking about in the streets come see you. So don't
Yeah.
get that confusion. But there's a level of accountability that I feel like I've never had. And so
Mm.
in that scheme, it kind of puts things into perspective and make you want to be more on guard.
So like when you say that, like I see a person living their life a certain way for most of their life, and now, or not now, well, into the adulthood, they're kind of
Yeah.
making this transition. Um, how was that? Was that a big struggle? Is that still a big struggle? Like you said, being able to live a little bit more loose or free, whatever that is.
Hmm.
And now, like you said, having laws, having people holding you accountable. Can we speak on that transition? Because I think all of us kind of like when we hear, we see the head wrap, we see a lot of those things. And I think many people kind of get it misconstrued, of course. And also, I think just humanize it. Like, like, is there a struggle? Like, is it tough? Like, what is that like?
It's a struggle to this day
Yeah.
because like, the covering up part never was my issue because like I said, I never wore shorts, skirts or dresses. I had like a brief moment in college because when you get out and you get rebellious. But I mean like this dress is switched out from my hoodie that I used to wear, my sweats that I used to wear. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? I never was a cat wearer, but the transition is very difficult, especially when um like life prior to was really like it was free in the sense of I wasn't like the extra party girl or nothing like that, but it's just I didn't have like I literally went to school to get away from home. So I
Mm-hmm.
was going to class not because oh this is exciting for me. I didn't want to go to law school because I liked it. I like law. It was I just wanted to get away from where I was, but now it's more um excuse me, my life is more structured. There's more rules. There are more and people think that because you have rules, it's a sense of control, but we also have to realize that without control, we're just all over the place. Just like,
Mhm.
in business, when you don't have rules, policies, and procedures, then you get all over the place and you get lost. So it's a transition to this day. It's difficult to this day, especially when you start thinking about being married, right? And so there's someone, my husband is someone that's been in the nation, that's very well read, very well studied, and so it's kind of also for him, he had the time to study into the nation. You know what I mean? He
Yeah.
had his alone time. He studied, but me, I kind of was. I don't want to say thrown into it, but by the time I got to Islam, I was already a mother. I was already a wife, and so the time of studying for me, I can't speak for any other of the sisters. It's like you really have to find the time to get one with your word, get one with the lessons, and so it's still a struggle. It's still a struggle. It's not easy. It's not easy to put away that I was one of those people that we like to call real. So I would just call you out no matter who was in front of who was in front of people, only because I feel like if you acting a fool in front of people, then you should be willing to be checked in front of people. But it
Yeah.
wasn't in the way that I do it now. It was more like like kind of like rah rah, if you could say that. But you know what I mean, like it's just a little bit different. I have to think about the way that I say things more. I have to check my energy, and I don't force myself on people or force myself into conversations. So it's like, it's really a growing process, and you learn
Yeah.
more about yourself every single day. But it's definitely a transition.
Yeah.
It's definitely a transition.
I heard you say something during that. You said that you went to school to get away from home. What was it about home that like you felt like you needed to get away from, if you don't mind me asking?
Um, to me, it was just, like I was one of I felt like the black sheep of my family, like those people with the one that everyone, like everybody else could get away from stuff. But if I even think about doing it, it's a problem. You know what I mean?
Are you the
I
oldest, youngest?
I'm not,
What are you
I'm
like?
like one below the middle. So there's
Okay.
like Shauna, Michael, Tisha. So four above me, and then two below me. So it was just like to me, it was just unfair treatment. My mom's not really that affectionate. So on top of feeling like you're being unfairly treated, there's no real affection. Literally, my my time spent at home was in my room reading all day. I used to read like the Twilight books. I read that in probably like 3 or 4 days. That's how much of a reader I was, because I would literally just sit in my home and read. And so to me, it was just uncomfortable. We didn't go outside, like I said before. We didn't go to sleepovers or nothing like that. So I was just trying to get away. And my mom doesn't have the best of attitude. She's not that pleasant to be around back then, especially as a child. So I was just trying to get away. I was just,
Mm,
I
mm.
was just trying to get away.
So as an adult has and JC, you go right after this. As an adult, do you think that you're able to empathize or connect with your mother on a different level than maybe you were previously?
I would say yeah, like I get it more now. Of course, she was always working or, having to pay bills. Like, but when I
For
got
sure.
to college, I didn't even know you had to pay for lights. Like I just thought that was like, oh, there's a bill attached to that. You know what I mean? So on the other side, I completely understand. It makes a lot more sense. But when you're young, you just don't have all of the facts.
For sure. For
And
sure. For sure.
my quick question was like, when you transitioned to the Nation of Islam, how was it with your family? How did they react to it? Because I
Great
know
question.
I have a lot of people in my family that are in the Nation of Islam, but since I grew up around them, I I I kind of do what they do because they were always there. Because
Yeah.
my father's side, all of them were in the Nation of Islam, but my daddy's not.
Yeah.
And that's weird, but everybody else is like, well, he don't do that. He don't eat pork and he don't do this. And then they look at me like, well, you in the Nation of Islam? And I'm like, no, but all the people in my family are.
Yeah.
Mm,
I think that really didn't phase me none because I mean, literally, I left for college in 2008. I went to college. I went back home maybe twice in the first 2 years of college. One was the transition between off campus and on campus. And then the second time was when my grandmother passed. So other than that, I didn't really go home. The only time I went to LA after those two times was when I met my husband because we were in a long distance relationship for maybe like I don't remember how long we were in a long distance, but the only time I went back to LA was when I saw him, and I didn't even go see my family. So when I transitioned to the Nation of Islam, it wasn't really a big deal for me because I didn't talk to them anyway. I didn't see them anyway. So it was just like whatever. But my dad till this but of course they had their jokes and they, say little stuff like us black people do, got the little jabs here and there, but it didn't really affect me because I mean, you're not in my everyday life like that. So
You did get away, did you say?
she was out, out, out. She said, I went back to LA, but I wasn't seeing them. So how did you and your husband meet? Like, what was that?
um
What was that
it
like?
was so random. So my husband was actually helping one of the other girls on a basketball team move her stuff up to Merced, and I just so happened to be riding with her that day, and we stopped by her house. I literally saw him for 2 minutes, and then I never saw him again, and 6 minutes later, I get a Facebook request. And and I'm like, "Who are you?" And he was like, "Oh, I'm Benny, da 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 da." And I was like, "Oh yeah, I remember you." And we've talked every day since. So
Mm.
it's
Wow.
really weird, like that stuff that you read in the movies, but it's really creepy when you think about it. Like, dude, how did you remember me from a 2 minute interaction, and then
Yeah,
you find me on Facebook? But yeah, I mean, since 2011.
that's awesome. That's awesome. And so when you guys got married, you said, he grew up in the Nation. Was that something that you did after the marriage, or was that like kind of a requirement that you had to become part of the Nation before y'all got married?
No, we were married before I joined the Nation.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, we were married before I joined the Nation. And yeah, I'll just
Was that
leave
a
it
lot
at
of
that.
conflict, like
With
before you
what?
was in the Nation? Like before you was in the Nation, like was it a lot of conflict as far as like your ideas, his ideas, or were you guys always able to see past that?
We didn't have those type of conversations, so it wasn't nothing like the biggest problem we might have had was me eating pork. And so at the
Or you
time,
tell
you
you
know what I
used to
mean?
tear
It
the
would
pork chop up? I didn't know that.
I don't eat no pork chop, but bacon, back then, bacon was my thing. I was one of those McDonald's people. I was getting that McMuffin in the morning, just, whatever. And so, when we were the long distance, it was okay because, you know what I mean? I'm up here
Yeah.
at school, you in LA at school. So, but once I had gotten pregnant, I think I got pregnant maybe like 7 months after we had been together. And once I got pregnant, he never pressured me, but when I got pregnant, he was like, "That pork gotta go." No. And I remember the last time I had pork, it was what was it? It was a McDonald's McMuffin, the little pork sausage on there. That was the last time I had pork, and he put his foot down. He said, "No, no, no, that's the
That's like
last
my
time."
wife. My wife, she eats some stuff that I don't rock with, and she knows, like, she don't play with my kids. She like, yeah,
Yeah, no.
your daddy doesn't believe him. We should eat this. So, like, yeah, you can have that, sister. She
The
don't eat pork
babies,
and stuff,
no.
but the babies, yeah, don't poison
He
my
was
lineage,
too serious.
bloodline.
Hey, son, it's
So,
hard being from Louisiana because we have
okay, everything,
just
everything.
damaging food.
It's ridiculous. I just seen one of my friends in my timeline, a guy I went to school with. He hunting, got this big old hog, like he just
Oh,
had
no.
to go in there.
Oh, that's
I'm
so
like, he about
sick.
to tear
It
that
make
nasty
my
thing
stomach
up.
turn. Just the smell of it makes me sick.
It's
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Disgusting.
the one thing I got that when I was younger, like when I was like my 24, 25, I still was transitioning, like cutting it off. But the reason I had to stop like eating pork for good, because I was like 25 and my blood pressure was like 180 over 110.
Oh wow.
Wow.
They admitted me in the hospital. You say, you got a choice, death or the pork, because it's killing you. It's killing you.
Wow.
And I didn't realize, like, and I say I was so young, but my eating habits was like, okay,
Wow.
this is cheap, get this, get that. And I barbecue. I've been barbecuing since I've been 10.
Yeah.
That's what we do in Louisiana. So those boars and all that stuff, my daddy would bring me a pork roast, and I just pork potatoes and do all that, and I'm eating this. And then one day I got real sick, and I was with my wife, and I was walking to the door, and I just passed out.
Wow.
So we got to go to the hospital. And after that, they told me what it was. They knew exactly what it was. So I stopped eating that, and it hadn't been, but like, I think it's been like 17 years. And I remember I went to Checkers one time, and I got some chili cheese fries. And I said, don't put no bacon on there. I said, don't put no bacon on there. Just chili and cheese. They put a corner of bacon on, just a piece. And I ate it. And I was sick for 2 weeks.
That stuff is no joke.
My body just would not accept it. So I know, like, the transitioning from that is amazing. But I like the way it make me feel. Now I'm transitioning off of red meat, chicken. I'm going straight to the vegetables. So it's taking a minute, but I'm getting.
That's awesome. So, Sister V, you say, since we're talking about food, I know that you guys have like a strict regimen, and some nation members stick to it stronger than others as far as the food goes. What was that like for you? Because you said you had to give up pork, but I see your timeline, and it looks like you've given up meat you don't do meat at all, do you, or do you?
Well, it depends. So I don't cook meat. I ain't finna touch no raw nothing. Like, I don't want to feel no raw chicken, none of that. Like, I could do some ground, what I mean, some ground turkey, but if you're talking about cleaning and cooking, I tried it once when I was in college in 2012. After I had my daughter, that's the first and last time I touched raw meat. So I don't cook meat, but if we go out, we'll eat meat. And my children have never had meat in their life. So at home we eat, pescatarian. But if we happen to like order out or eat out, we might have meat.
So pescatarian is what, like fish?
Just fish, and then the other stuff.
Everything.
No meat.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool. That's cool. Yeah. So like what is like you guys do a lot of bean dishes, right? Like a lot of things around
I don't
beans.
know about dishes, but
Okay, well I thought I
that
saw like a hamburger or so. It was something that I saw that you had
Beans
put on your
are always
a bean burger or
always
something.
being. Oh yes, okay. And
Those are
I'm gonna do
good?
this little plug. If they are so good. Like
need.
I've never thought I would crave a bean burger, but whatever they put in that burger is legit. And the ones I like, they don't sell no more, but they said they're coming out with a new garlic mix. But Lord have mercy, them burgers are so good. So I mean, we have chili, we have bean soup. We do a lot of like burritos because of course our children, they eat what they want to eat. So they do the
Mhm.
burritos and nachos. We just put navy beans or chili on them. So I'm still getting into my cooking, you know what I mean? I
Mhm.
can cook, but not like, the MGT standard.
Oh, it's a
So
standard. Talk about that. Like y'all got some cooks, like that's part of the thing.
Yeah, the MGT be whipping it up. I mean,
Really?
when I was in the hospital, I think I was in the hospital for 5 days, and one of the sisters had gathered, had made the family some navy bean enchiladas, and the seasoning she put on that thing, you could would have sworn it was some sausage somewhere up and through there. It was so good. So the MGT be showing out. I'm just, I'm on the baby level. I'm trying to elevate through the levels right now. But yes, yes, yes,
That's
they be
what's
whipping
up.
it up.
I didn't know that. So in your MGT classes, like what do you guys learn? Like what is a class like? But take me behind the scenes if as much as you can. I don't know if
Yeah,
what's
we don't
what
be talking about
entailed.
the MGT class,
Yeah.
but I can say it's more about just if I could put a word on it, it's self accountability.
Okay.
Us taking completely care of and focusing on ourselves, irregardless to everything else that happens, and getting back to our core and getting back to our nature as women.
Okay. And then how old? What's the age limit? So like if I was 40 years old, would I go through if I was a 40-year-old woman, would I go through an MGT class or is
Yeah,
that just
all the
for a
women.
certain
Yeah,
all
all
the
the
women?
women
So
go to the
it's
MGT
not a
class.
young
No, it's
young
not a
woman
young
thing.
or old. It's
Okay.
all the women go to class together, all the men go to class together, and then we worship together. Not like church worship. We ain't
Mhm.
doing the and all the dancing and stumping, but we go and learn. We come together for the lecture on Sundays when the mosque was open.
Okay, I didn't know that. That's awesome. All right, so you are also a entrepreneur. So you told us a little bit about that as far as you feel your calling and the work that you like to do most is really helping women transition into entrepreneurship. Where did that come from? Like where did that start? That's pretty unique. I don't know a lot of people that feel like that's their niche. So where did that start?
It actually just started recently. Like I've always been on the back end, like doing the support type of thing. But like you all know, Brother Ben X, I've been working with him for quite a few years. And my platform has really just been the same. I
Mhm.
have access to all the tools, all the courses, all that kind of stuff. But excuse me, it's a difference between like when you know what you want to do and you're just doing what you love, right? So I
Mm,
was just doing what I love, you know what I mean? I was behind the scenes helping here, helping there, helping during the building process, and to me that was fulfilling up until a point because I it had gotten to the point where yes, I was doing what I love, but I didn't have a purpose. I didn't have a reason why I was doing it. And so, just recently right before I got sick, I was introduced to Sabrina Kane, and then it all kind of just clicked together and worked for me because sometimes I think it's forgotten that, I think it's becoming more common, but at one point it was very like taboo for a woman to say that she's struggling being a wife and a mother.
mm,
And people just automatically assume that if you're a stay-at-home mom, you just do nothing all day, right? But now it's becoming more widely known that if you're a stay-at-home mom, you're working, you're doing work 24/7. You don't really have a me time. You don't have any off days. You don't really have anyone that's really catering to you. Everything is about everyone else being first. And so that was where I found my niche. I forgot where I was reading it at, but it was saying that how we're all put here on earth to solve a problem,
Yeah.
right? And most of the time, the thing that we're struggling with is usually the problem we're meant to solve. And so, for a very long time, I was struggling. I was having a struggle between the balance of doing what I liked and doing what I love, but also acknowledging and recognizing, hey, you got a husband, you have children, you got to pay attention to that too, you know. And
Hmm.
it's easy to focus all your time and do the things that you love because it's what you love. You don't really have to tell, nobody has to tell you to do that, right? But I wasn't always the one, I wasn't one of those women or girls that was like, oh, I want to be a wife when I grow up. You know what I mean? I want to have children. In fact, I didn't want, never wanted to get married and I didn't want to have any children. And so, you know what I mean? Like, it's a little bit difficult for me. And sometimes it's very shameful and embarrassing to say this, but I always feel like I have to say it because I know that there are other women out there that feel like this. But to me, being a wife and being a mom is like work. Some women, they naturally just fall in line. They just love, love, love it. To me, what I do in the administration field is, it doesn't feel like anything. Like, I just signed on with ABS, and it almost feels like robbery because it's like, oh, you're gonna pay me to do what I would do for free anyway. But
Hmm.
that is just natural. It comes naturally to me. But on the other side, being a wife and a mother, to me, it's work because
Hmm.
it's, I don't want to say it's not what I wanted, but my focus was elsewhere. I wanted to be a businesswoman when I was coming up. So
Right.
now I'm trying to adjust my mind and adjust my feeling. I'm still coming into my femininity. I'm still coming into trying to shed the negative habits I learned from, you know, my parents as far as being a parent and being a mom. And so, you know, that's kind of where it was. That's kind of where it is like that. That's how it came about. I found out, I met with Sabrina Kane. Well, not met with her, but I was introduced to her being as a person. And that's how I kind of fell into my niche. You know, that's the
Mm.
problem that I'm having. And the reason why I'm there is because as I'm working to figure it out myself, I want to help other women work and figure it out too, because I don't believe that we were meant to be just wives and moms unless that's what we want to do. Like my best friend, all she wants to do is be a mom.
Hmm.
But there are some of us that that's not all we want to do. We want to do and be something more. And so that's how I found it. As I'm learning, I'm teaching.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I think that niche in that lane, I think you can do a lot of great work. When I look in the Bible, I see like God continues to use like imperfect people for like big, big purposes, and not to say imperfect and say like, you know, like we have like you have a tremendous flaw or anything, but
Yeah.
like you said, like when you think of a person that might be a mom or might be a wife or might be managing a house, like you said, it's like it feels like work. I'm learning. I'm having to retrain my mind. I think those type of people actually connect with audiences in a different way because I don't think you're an anomaly. I think there are many, many, many women that struggle with the same thing. I know them personally, have relationships with them that struggle with the same thing. I'm just happy to see like you guys getting in front of it, putting a face to it, putting a voice to it, because it is super important and it
Yeah.
doesn't need to live in the shadows anymore. And there's not a right or wrong, you know what I mean? It just, you know, but people do need to have those platforms to navigate it because we do need you guys as wives and as mothers, but at the same time, the world needs your brains and your ideas. Like even think about the ABS and like a lot of the things that, you know, me and Jason might think a certain type of way. Then you'll come in there with a third idea and we're like, hey, that idea is way better. Like that, like literally that.
Yeah.
And think about that. This changes the lives of 1,000 other people that we're responsible for by having you be there. You know what I'm saying?
Yes,
So it's
sir.
not like, you know, like it's a selfish thing or anything like that. It definitely has to get balanced, you know. Kudos to women that just have always dreamed that fairy tale of, you know, just being a mom, being not even a fairy tale. They've just always dreamed of being a mom and a wife, and they're living their best life like that. But also shout out to the women that, you know, also want to go down to, you know, and speak to what you're talking to. What has been the most difficult part about that as far as balancing this is what I love to do, but I also know that I have to be responsible for my family. What does that look like? Kind of speak to that.
Um, the most difficult part is to me is the responsibility that come, like, okay, so like with the children, it's a lot of work, right? But you know, they don't really too much have anything to say. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you just kinda do what you do with them, but it's really the relationship part of it, right? Because I have a husband, he's not like my husband is not one of those men that just, like, lay back and take stuff, he's very vocal, he's very intelligent, and then so when you think about that and then, I work with all men. And so you have that concept of like, trying to make sure that he feels comfortable, even though like he doesn't have a problem with certain things. But I always think about it like, because when I'm watching shows with marriages or something like that, always the men are expressing different viewpoints, and I'm like, I don't ever want my husband to feel like that.
Yeah.
So I'm very careful with the way that I interact with people. I'm very careful with the way that I'm working. But that was a big problem for me because I will always be working. I will always be working, and he's kind of just like sitting off to the sideline, trying not to discourage, but wanting to encourage. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's kind of like a little balance type of thing. It's like he never wants to say anything that will discourage me from what I'm doing, but also reminding me like, "Hey, we're kind of here too."
Yes,
So
ma'am.
that's the hardest part. That's the hardest part because, like, figuring out how to be a wife is hard by itself, right?
Mm,
Because my mom was a single mom. Like, none of the women in my family or in my life are married. So that figuring out how to be a wife is already difficult. But when you put on the fact that you're trying to do other things like in business, um, it becomes a little bit difficult. So I think
mhm.
that's the most difficult part.
That's real. That's real. And now, how many kids do you guys have?
We have 4 children. We don't got no baby goats.
Yeah, I'm sorry. The children.
Children.
I never heard of that until y'all. But yeah, you got to say that long word to get to the same thing. So like, what's the ages?
My oldest is 8, my youngest is 2, and then so we every 2 years I was pregnant or nursing. Like I've never this is the longest I've been without being pregnant or nursing. So we have an 8-year-old, a 6-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 2-year-old.
And does your husband come from a bigger family as well? Because it sounds like you kind of had a bunch of brothers. You said seven. How many? How many?
Yeah, 7.
And does your husband come from a big family as well?
I wouldn't say maybe a big family,
But
but
as far as
it's only
siblings,
3 of the no, it's only 3 of
okay.
them.
And so
Yeah.
y'all done?
Oh, we better be, cause he keep be having these secret conversations. So I'm just waiting until she's ready. I'm not ready now or never. I don't want any more.
Love.
I am finished. Okay, I'm
That-
done. I'm
that- That's so
I'm,
funny. So,
I'm finished.
so Sister Victoria, what tools have are helping you or what's helping you manage this? How are you getting a better handle on it? Because I do see you kind of, you killing it. You know what I'm saying?
Uh,
So like, what is helping you improve in that area as far as the balancing the family and the work life?
the number one thing I can say now is just being open with my husband when I'm feeling overwhelmed or when I'm feeling like, okay, I'm having a difficult time spreading myself, you know what I mean? Trying to figure out what to do when. That's been the most because that's kind of like the difficult part because I don't want sometimes it's nerve-wracking to have that conversation like, "Okay, I really wanna do this. This is what I wanna do." But I think the first thing that's helping me manage me is just being open and honest with my husband and letting him know how I'm feeling, if it's difficult, and now he's been more interactive with me, like, if he sees me at the computer for too long, he's like, "Okay, it's time to get out the computer." That's why I wasn't in the tribe last night because I had got a migraine, but I'm still in there trying to
Yeah,
hold on, keeping track of the numbers, making sure
yeah,
making sure everybody da 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 da. And he's like, okay, it's time to go to sleep, right? But a lot of that has to do with me getting sick, and so it's not just me watching out for myself anymore. He's a little bit more attentive to my health now, um, and so that was number one. And then number two is I have a notebook, so I don't even know how many businesses I'm in now, like how many things I'm doing. But this is
yeah.
my notebook. So I have a note. This is my ABS notebook. So anytime I'm doing ABS work, I have an ABS question. So I have everything in this book, and that really helps me writing down a to-do list, keeping one like subject in one area,
Hmm.
being more organized in the way that I'm doing stuff, writing down systems. That's the biggest thing. Like, a lot of us will just have a list of to-do things and then realize that we can't get through them because it's like we start here. Say for instance, if we're supposed to be working on a project, we never created a system for how we work on projects. So half the time we're figuring out how we're going to start the project, and
Mm.
then all that time is wasted. So just putting systems in place have been the really big thing, and that's part of the thing that I'm going over in the master class, on screen showing, because it makes life so much easier when you just have a system in place, and then it saves you time because you can just get things done and get things going.
That's awesome. Awesome. So systems is what I'm hearing.
Just
System. That's awesome. What would you tell a woman, a sister that's struggling with that, with finding that balance, with wanting to express herself either, in the work field, or maybe she wants to be an entrepreneur, but also has those responsibilities as, the for the upkeep of the home and her husband and her children?
I would say you got to have that conversation first. It doesn't have to be before you start, excuse me, but it definitely has to be a conversation had. I think that a lot of the stress that I've had over the years was because I didn't speak.
Mm.
And so, there's that expectation. Like I always say that a lot of women, mothers and wives in business don't get the support that they need, not because the people in their lives don't support them, it's because they don't know how to support them. And
Mm.
sometimes as women in business, we don't know how to ask for the support we need because we don't know what type of support we need. Like it's new, it's fresh. And so I think that that's one of the parts, figuring out what kind of help you need, and then being vocal about it and sharing that. And then the other thing is just like figuring it out. You know what I mean? Figure out, what do you actually want. It's not enough to just say I want to be in business. You know what I mean? Figure out what you love to do. Figure out that thing that you stopped doing since you've been married or had children, and go back to that thing and find yourself and figure out if that could be, that business that you want. That's the difficult part. When we just throw ourselves into stuff, right? We get excited, and then all of a sudden we have a business that we've started out of excitement and not, desire. And then we got to maintain this trash business and then still try to balance a home life while maintaining. It's just, so I would say be vocal with your spouse about what it is that you want or what you perceive that you want. And a lot of times I find that when I go to my house, to my husband, and let him know XYZ, for some reason y'all always got the logical answers, you know what I mean, lined up. Like everything just makes sense when y'all. So go on and get your get your blessing, sis, and just let them know, and then figure out what you actually want to do. Don't look at all of the shiny objects and say, oh, this will be the quickest. Figure out what you actually want to do.
Mm. I love that answer. What was you about to say, Jason?
I think communication is real key because, like, most I hear people always say that men body, they mind logic, while a woman's more emotional and more nurturing. So sometimes it get overwhelming with them, especially when they put themselves into a new entity like business. If they hadn't never been in business, and then hey, I need some help, because we all get prideful on both sides. We all get prideful, and then for some reason we not communicate with each other. You just taking it.
Yeah.
And what tends to damage a relationship and a business at times. I always say, if you pay attention to my lives, I say don't marry your business, because it's not a living person. But you have to marry the person that you are, meant to be with. It's a difference. So I understand completely what you about. That communication is real.
It is. It is. All
Yeah.
right, Sister Victoria, we hear something about a master class, so I would like you to kind of let us know a little bit about that as we wrap up this interview. What's up with the master class? What can people
Oh,
expect? What is it
so
about?
So a couple weeks, probably like 2 months ago now, or maybe even 3 months ago, I came out with the transition guide. And so the master class is really just an extension of that. It's literally taking someone through the mindset of transitioning from staying at home to working at home, what you have to be thinking in your mind, what you have to know in your mind, how to set up systems so that you can run your business and run your house without losing your mind, the tools, foundational tools that you'll need in making that transition. And then just like giving, tips on how you can make it easier for you. And it's so funny because it wasn't until recently that that was a part of the curriculum for the master class about being communicative, right? Because you know what I mean, like before, it just wasn't on my mind to do that because sometimes as women we have these unrealistic expectations of our husbands, and we also make up stuff in our head that's not of reality. Like we'll make up a scenario that, and then at the end of the day, when we actually have the conversation, it's nothing like that. And so I was
Yeah.
doing a lot of that early on, before until recently, and I'm like, conversations have to be had. So that's also going to be inside of the curriculum, just like encouragement on, having difficult conversations and a lot of self accountability. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, the transition is going to be difficult enough. But if you try to blame everybody else during the transition, it's going to be even more difficult because you eliminate your opportunity for growth because you're focusing outward instead of inward. So the class is going to be, I think, inshallah, it'll be pretty dope. I'm excited about it, nervous about it as well. And so yeah, that's
Awesome.
what the masterclass is gonna be about.
And where can people find more information about the masterclass?
Well, if you want to get on the wait list, you can text Healthy Hue, all caps, no space, to 77948. And then as the class comes out and everything is set up, then I'll be sending the link out to that.
Awesome. Awesome. Anything else you want to tell our guests before we get off of this thing, Sister V?
Just keep watching the podcast, y'all. It's pretty dope. It's pretty dope. You know what I mean? These brothers are stand-up guys. And for the sisters out there, these two brothers are very solid. You know what I mean? They stand up. And this is not racial, but they stand up for us Black women. And it's very refreshing just to see two men be two men unapologetically, none of that, soft, whatever, you know what I mean? They're two really stand up, honest guys. And this is going to be a dope podcast. And I'm sure I already know some people they got coming down the pipeline. So y'all might want to tune in for what's next.
That's right. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. This has been a beautiful, beautiful podcast. I knew it would, but you just don't
Yes,
know
sir.
until it goes through. So shoot, I got some perspective on my home girl. I ain't know about. So that's dope. I gotta back up. Now I know wrestling and all that type of stuff. You got it. You got it. All right. So you guys follow my sister at Sister Victoria X on Instagram, Facebook, or just Instagram?
Everything.
Everything.
Everything is Sister Victoria
Awesome.
X. Yes, sir.
For sure. And then, follow my brother, Jason King Biz. Any closing words, Jason, as we wrap this thing up?
No, I just want to tell Sister Victoria, ever since you and Sean came into my life, because y'all know in the beginning, I was by myself. I just want to thank y'all because it means so much to me, and just having the organization, the communication, the way we interact with each other, no conversation is missed. If we doing something, we do it as a unit. And I think a duplication in the Black community. If we can get along and do stuff the way that we did this last week, it was simply amazing to me to see us move in such unison. It like right now, just talking about it brings chills to my arm, my body, because watching that was amazing. It was just amazing because we all was okay, this going wrong. Well, Sister V, you do this. Okay, that's going wrong. Well, let me ask Jason, you do this. Sean, you here? Boom, boom. And we all was in sync. It was amazing. No problems, no arguments, nothing. Everybody was in a position moving as a unit. So I love that. I love it.
All right.